The father looked at his daughter's painful expression and felt very distressed, so he decided to take the family away from the city. Katie also began treatment in a new environment, but the images in her mind lingered. He still firmly believed that something happened that night, and the fleeting images kept resurfacing in his mind. Katie suffered from mental torment every day, while the doctor on the other side indulged in a life of pleasure, as if nothing had happened. After a period of active treatment, Katie finally showed improvement. Although her father believed her, the police's examination results wouldn't lie. He hoped she could live her life again, and things seemed to return to normal. But that day, while chatting with her older brother, she was surprised when he not only didn't advise her, but also said she wasn't a pure girl anyway, even if something did happen. We are powerless, but this once again stimulated Katie. Clearly she had done nothing wrong. Why did everyone have to point fingers at her? It wasn't just her brother. That day, while her sister was playing outside, when a neighbor girl asked her why they moved here, her sister said it was because her sister did something wrong. No one would believe her story anymore. This sentence deeply pierced Katie's heart. She decided to prove herself again. So she returned to the small town alone, hoping the police would reopen the case from that year. However, she was told it had already been closed, and without new evidence, it couldn't be retried. To collect evidence, she hired a private detective for a high fee. She began 24-hour surveillance. Then she approached the doctor's assistant, thinking the woman must know some secrets. Katie told her that the doctor treated her that way, and perhaps one day he would extend his claws to her family, or her sisters, or even her daughter. After a round of persuasion, the assistant was indeed convinced by Katie. She secretly stole medical records from the hospital, which contained records of girls who had been hospitalized, but had never returned. The woman's intuition told her there was definitely something wrong. To find new evidence, she started visiting the addresses on the list one by one. However, when she explained her intentions, the girls' expressions changed instantly. These people were not only famous, but also had happy families. No one mentioned Katie's suspicions. On the other side, the private detective also successfully obtained the doctor's saliva, under the pretense of seeking treatment. The man carefully collected the evidence and began comparing the samples overnight, but the results surprised everyone. The saliva had mixed with blue, and they obtained no results. Therefore, the detective approached the doctor's assistant again, hoping she could provide the man's experience. But clearly, she underestimated the woman's infatuation. They could only choose more despicable means. Katie successfully found the lipstick used by the doctor, but accidentally set off the alarm when leaving. This also alerted the doctor who was resting. Fortunately, their efforts paid off this time. The sample perfectly matched the previous evidence. Katie took the report to the police. The officer had doubts about the results, but the man still decided to give him a chance. They found the local prosecutor. Although they could now prove the two matched, it was obtained illegally and couldn't be used as evidence. Unexpectedly, the doctor did not refuse the police's evidence collection, but this brought him life troubles. Therefore, the lawyer emphasized that if the third sample still couldn't match, then the police could no longer disturb the doctor with the same charge, and must also make Katie publicly apologize. This means the case would be permanently closed. Clearly, they were very confident. The doctor even voluntarily took off his clothes. But when the forensic expert was about to draw blood from his fingers, he was stopped by the lawyer because it could damage his hand nerves. For a surgeon, this was simply a nightmare. Under the strong obstruction of both, they could only extract from his arm. However, after one injection, not a single drop of blood came out. The forensic expert thought the needle was broken. Fortunately, after changing the needle, they successfully collected blood samples through legal means. This time, the police didn't dare to delay and began analyzing the samples, but the result surprised everyone again. There was still no successful match, but this time, the sampling process had no issues. Katie didn't believe the police's nonsense at all. She thought everything was a conspiracy by the doctor. Furious, Katie chased after the doctor, but received a death threat from the lawyer. Looking at the doctor's arrogant expression, Katie completely broke down, but he had no idea which link had gone wrong. After returning home, the doctor began to ponder. He once again disguised himself as a doctor and came to the hospital, claiming he wanted to personally inspect the patients. However, he walked straight to a ward and looked at the woman sleeping inside. The doctor slowly pushed open the door. The next day, while the police were still confused, they heard an unexpected surprise. Suddenly, a girl came to the police station to report that she had also been assaulted by the doctor. The sudden turn of events surprised the police, but the problem now was that there was no evidence. The prosecutor hoped Katie could identify the doctor in court because there were now two victims, and they could change the civil lawsuit into a criminal case. The girl was the one who had stayed in the hospital ward last night, but she only had a vague memory and left no evidence of assault in her body. Soon, the police arrested the doctor. When he was handcuffed, he still didn't know why he was arrested. This time, the forensic expert chose not to draw blood, but to collect oral mucosa and his hair. Clearly, this time the doctor was a bit flustered, and his expression was no longer so calm. After the forensic analysis, the samples finally matched successfully. But now it could only be said that the two had had a relationship, which could not prove that Katie was not consensual. This was simply absurd, as if they were asking him to prove that Katie was indeed himself. Soon, it was the day of the trial. Katie stood up bravely. She faced the lawyer's vicious accusations, which not only insulted her character, but also seized on her weaknesses to humiliate her, making the jury think Katie was a promiscuous woman. Faced with the evidence provided by the police, the doctor no longer denied it. He claimed he did it to protect his family, and also, the two had a consensual relationship and even seduced him multiple times. As for the issue of faking blood samples, he explained that as a well-known doctor, he often had pursuers and frequently lost personal items. To prevent them from being exploited by malicious people, he injected others' blood into a tube, and then implanted it into his arm's subcutaneous blood vessels. The first few times he stepped on were other people's blood, aiming to prevent malicious people from succeeding. Faced with the doctor's eloquent defense, Katie did not back down. She moved everyone present with her sincere emotions. Finally, it was time for the jury to announce the verdict. In the long year, Katie never gave up. If the incident had happened to other girls, perhaps there wouldn't be such an ending today. It was her courage and determination that ultimately brought the wrongdoers to justice.